In 2016, the 20th Judicial District Commission on Judicial Performance unanimously, 10-0, recommended that Judge Bruce Langer be retained. The Commission appreciates Judge Langer's commitment to equity, justice, and knowledge of the law, and concludes that Judge Langer is a capable judge who will continue to gain experience and legal knowledge going forward. This said by the Colorado Judicial Performance.gov in 2016. Judge Langer gave me his card when I met him at the house his father lived at, to be more respect for the medicinal purposes of marijuana. I heard no marijuana cases on the bench that day. The drug of choice seemed to be Xanax or methamphetamines. All of the women who appeared in court that day had a history with drugs, and all were given agreements that involved treatment with alternative sentencing. The section for prisoners held mostly men. Of those men, I counted more Latino than Caucasian, and the oldest man was 42. There was one woman. Most of the other women being prosecuted were sitting on the bench present out of custody, except one case where the criminal didn't show up. And one was a childhood friend's brother. This, by the way, should all be off the record, and I am changing names based on privacy. George had been arrested on criminal trespass and had been attaining speeds of above 80 miles per hour in order to resist arrest while also recklessly operating a vehicle. George was brought to the stand where I immediately recognized him. I know that his sister has a tendency towards social deviance, and in the 3 years I've known her, has violated her probation terms 4 recorded times for driving a car without a license. She has herself evaded the police by abandoning her vehicle on the side of the road and running away with the family dog and her 6-month-old daughter in tow. They, of course, caught her, and she does have an ankle monitor, and I know she is given home parole where she is able to stay with her child on condition that she never leaves the house. As far as I know, she and her brother are now both unmarried, unemployed parents without driver's license. I also knew exactly the kinds of things George had been up to recently, including using methamphetamines. This story and millions of others like this are of kids who fell along the authority conflict pathway at a young age. These kids are more likely to navigate towards a covert pathway during adulthood, and as seen in this graph found on page 98 of Schmaliger, the 3 pathways to disruptive behavior are some of the cases that can be explained by the OJJDP's causes and correlates study, which is a result of a series of social development theories. It was published in 1997 by Barbara Kelly. These theories, as well as a number of different perspectives on crime causation, are what can color each judge's decision on a case. I think that it is a part of these theories that has caused the overcrowding of jails. Let's have a look at 2 specific cases from this court docket. With each presented case, Judge Langer would have a dialogue with the prisoner. Are you of sound mind and body today upon reaching this decision? Did anybody that I should know about give you money or talk you into making this decision to plead guilty today? And finally, do you know the rights you are waiving by making your plea today? The answers were always yes. George's case was complicated. I remember his attorney said, "Well, I have a % of a disposition," and now I realize it's because George had 2 cases. One, a Class 6 felony for possession of methamphetamines, which apparently he'd already gained jail time for, and was eluding a peace officer under violation of probation, which makes his case more serious. He was asking his sentence to be concurrent with his friend's sentence, who had received a reduced sentence and probation while George had been issued more time without probation. George had a great attorney because he thought George to be a little old for such antics. Then Judge Langer asked George about school. George said he had a degree in digital arts and a 4-year-old daughter. He said he felt like he'd been successful with probation in the past and was grateful for the opportunity to go to the BTC. Judge Langer then inquired about meth, and he asked if the car incident might have anything to do with him using. George wavered before he said, "I was not high." Judge Langer repeated, "Drugs don't have any part of that incident." And George denied it again, with more confidence this time. He knew exactly how long he'd been in custody, which was 78 days. Right now, you'll see some of the charts and graphs I've included from the Justice System Partners on bouldercounty.org during their last report, which was in October 2016. It looks like jail rates have gone up across the country, especially in Boulder. Here we see that in 1985 they had less than 100 inmates, whereas by 2014 there are much more than 200. It looks like most of these kids are in jail pre-trial, and most of them are incarcerated for misdemeanors. Then drug felonies seem to be popular, and from what I saw in the court docket I attended, I would say that the other categories are for sexual misconduct or fraud. A lot of people are writing bad checks, and a lot of people are sexually assaulting kids and spying on them, apparently. Um, so now, having seen all these charts, you'd think that a judge would jump for joy at the opportunity to give someone some probation time, right? At least that was my thought as a naive young woman coming into this class. However, according to Schmalinger, sentencing philosophies are intertwined with issues of religion, morals, values, and emotions. That being said, this paper was written to evaluate Judge Langer's prosecutorial discretion with an objective state of mind. So I have a lot of questions and I have a couple answers, but I think they're a little ahead of the times now. Mr. Perry versus the people. The attorney for the people started off with a potent argument. He said, "We find 157 days to be correct in this sentencing with no chance for probation." Essentially, he jumped this guy and has expressed no remorse for doing so. He has 8 misdemeanors and a felony past. This isn't the maximum, but it could be. My initial thought upon hearing this argument was that there was no question as to the fact that this person was malicious. When the prosecutor's defender spoke up, he illuminated struggles with alcohol and the fact that it's difficult to take responsibility for things that you can't remember. She said that he's been having a very difficult time in jail and has such a long history of being in jail that he has made enemies in other jails. And they keep trying to transport him to those other jails. His disciplinary history in jail related to that. They would put him on lockdown because he would refuse to go to those other jails. So he doesn't have a very good disciplinary record in jail. She said it's been long and difficult. When they addressed Mr. Perry, when the judge addressed Mr. Perry, he asked why Mr. Perry felt he should gain probation. Mr. Perry talked about his mom and his sister, how he'd like to see them, and about how it was his birthday. The day that he was getting tried was his birthday. He was sorry. He said he was sorry for what he did and he did want to get better. He mentioned having a torn ligament and he wanted to get treated for it. When he began to defend himself about the fight, he went into vast detail about the whole thing, how they argued over who stood up first, and that it was a hit and tackle case of self-defense. And Judge Langer then asked him how he felt about getting alcohol treatment, and he said, "If that's what thou shall have me do." He was very just sort of unnecessarily comedic. When Judge Langer responded, I swear I could have fallen over. I did not really see this coming. He said, based on the fact that you have had a serious assault misdemeanor in 2012, 2013, two in 2014, 2015, 16, and 17, I am going to say that this was not in self-defense, and I have an interview here from your parole officer that says you have no, your probation officer that says you have no intention of getting treatment for alcohol. So he has no option for parole, and he has 240 days left in jail. I enjoyed the opportunity to observe the Honorable Bruce Langer. I found all of the cases to have been ruled appropriately, and what I see lacking is only the degree to which more programs aren't implemented and readily available at a judge's disposal. You will see on the screen that according to the 2016 jail survey that the education bubble has most certainly been lacking. The day I sat in court, I heard one of the sexual misconduct criminals say that he was obtaining his GED in jail. He did obtain probation as well. My closing thought is that although Mr. Perry seemed to have a habit of beating people up, he also has been in a lot of pain, and probably in much more mental pain for not being able to see his mother and sister, for not having the right diagnosis for his mental capabilities. Because of what I learned about jail conditions in this class, I wept for the fact that on his birthday he was denied probation because of an egotistical comment he'd made in the past. I know some people are afraid of Alcoholics Anonymous because of the religious aspect. Generations of humans have fled countries because they didn't want to be forced to believe in a God. I think a good thing for me or my generation to do for our fellow man is to find anger management classes and trauma classes that we can offer to inmates such as Mr. Perry. He is a tough case, but with so much compassion, it's only a matter of time until there is a new trend in courts and jails, a trend that highlights these mental blocks and tries to address them in a medical fashion first before administering any more time in jail. A new trend that should develop in time is the priority of medical safety before sheer incarceration.